One aspect of the English speaker foreign accent that's very consistent from person to person, meaning that pretty much all of us do it regardless of our Spanish proficiency, is the pronunciation of the voiceless stops, the p, t, and k phonemes. In this video, we're going to describe the differences between English and Spanish p, t, and k, and talk about how you can improve your Spanish p, t, and k so that you can reduce your foreign accent and sound more native-like. To start out with, let's talk about what we mean when we say the p, t, and k phonemes. What we mean is the p, t, and k sounds, regardless of how they're spelled. In Spanish, both the p and t phonemes are only spelled with the letters p and t, which makes them easy to recognize. But the k phoneme may be spelled using the letter c before a, o, or u, the q-u combination, or much more rarely the letter k. It's also a component of the pronunciation of the letter x, although we won't be talking about that in this video. So when I say the Spanish k phoneme, I'm referring to the k sound, regardless of how it's spelled. Also, I just want to say that this discussion is purposefully simplified. Someone who's well-read in phonetics may be tempted to say, well actually, in the unstressed syllable initial position and after s, English plosives are two-phase, and a spectrographic analysis shows that they... This level of detail is interesting for maybe only 2 or 3 people who will watch this video, and it's entirely unnecessary for the practical purpose of helping people improve their pronunciation. People don't learn to pronounce speech sounds by intellectualizing about acoustic phonetics or examining spectrographs. They learn their pronunciation by developing intuitions about how things should sound. This video is going to focus on helping you develop those intuitions through simple explanations. Alright, so in English, p, t, and k are referred to as voiceless plosives. In some positions, they're pronounced very tense and with a bit of an outward burst of air, and with an aspiration or short exhalation of breath. In other positions, they're unaspirated, but still pronounced very tense and with some outward burst of air. And depending on the dialect, in other positions, they're pronounced as a simple closure. You can visually observe these two versions of English p by holding a feather a couple inches in front of your mouth and saying the word paper. As you pronounce the p's, you will see the feather move with the bursts of air. Paper, paper, paper. Spanish p, t, and k are not really plosives. Spanish-speaking authors refer to them as oclusivas, and in my videos, I usually refer to them as stops. They're pronounced by bringing parts of the mouth together and creating a complete stoppage of air, but without the outward burst of air or aspiration of their English counterparts. We could observe this difference between English p and Spanish p by having a native Spanish speaker place a feather a couple of inches in front of her mouth and say the word papel. As she pronounced the p's, we would not see the feather move with each of the p sounds. Papel, papel, papel. The difference between English and Spanish k is perfectly analogous to p, and this can be observed by comparing the English word cocoa and the Spanish word coco. Cocoa, coco, coco, coco. English and Spanish t have the same difference in tension and explosiveness, but they also have other important differences. The most significant is that Spanish t is pronounced in a completely different spot in the mouth than English t. English t is articulated with the tip of the tongue touching the gummy ridge above the upper front teeth, here. Tall. Spanish t is pronounced with the tip of the tongue low on the back side of the upper front teeth, clear down here near the incisal edge. Tal. Okay, so this is a major problem native English speakers have when we speak Spanish. In all positions, we pronounce p, t, and k with greater tension and explosiveness than the Spanish equivalent, and in some positions we also pronounce them with an accompanying aspiration. These features are extremely obvious to native Spanish listeners, and they're a major factor in the stereotypical English speaker foreign accent. So if we want to reduce our foreign accent, it's very important that we find a way to change our intuitions about how to pronounce these sounds. And how can we do that? I think the easiest way is to link the Spanish sound with an English sound we already know how to pronounce. I'll explain what I mean using English bilabial plosives, voiceless and voiced. We can rank the syllable initial bilabial plosives this way, with stressed syllable initial p at the top. It's tense, plosive, and aspirated. Next is the unstressed syllable initial p. It's tense and plosive, but not aspirated. And here at the bottom we have stressed syllable initial b. It's unaspirated and both less tense and less plosive than either of these English P's. We can test the plosiveness of English B by placing a feather in front of our mouth and pronouncing the English word ball. Ball, ball, ball. If you do this experiment, you'll observe that the feather does not move around with a burst of air from the B sound. So the degree of tension and plosiveness of the English B sound is similar to that of the Spanish P sound. Listen to these two syllables, this one pronounced with an English accent and this one pronounced with a Spanish accent. Ba, 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 ba. To my ear, the only real difference between these two sounds is that English B is voiced while Spanish P is voiceless. One interesting experiment is to whisper this syllable with an English accent and this one with a Spanish accent. Ba, 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 ba. To my ear, the two are indistinguishable when whispered. And the same concept is true for the velar sounds. If you rank the English velar plosives, voiceless and voiced, they go like this, with stressed syllable initial K, tense, plosive, and aspirated, unstressed syllable initial K, tense and plosive, and stressed syllable initial G, unaspirated, and both less tense and less plosive than any K. We can test the plosiveness of English G by placing a feather in front of our mouth and pronouncing the English word go. Go, go. If you do this experiment, you'll observe that the feather does not move around with a burst of air from the G sound. So the degree of tension and explosiveness of the English G sound is similar to that of the Spanish K sound. Listen to these two syllables, this one pronounced with an English accent and this one pronounced with a Spanish accent. Ga, 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 ga. To my ear, the only real difference between these two sounds is that English G is voiced while Spanish K is voiceless. And observe them whispered, this syllable with an English accent and this syllable with a Spanish accent. Ga, 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 ga. For an ordinary observer, I think they're indistinguishable when whispered. The situation with English and Spanish T is similar with regard to tension and plosiveness, but it's different in the point of articulation. Still, it's useful to make the comparison. If you rank English alveolar plosives, voiceless and voiced, they go like this, with stressed syllable initial T, tense, plosive, and aspirated, unstressed syllable initial T, tense and plosive, and stressed syllable initial D, unaspirated and both less stressed and less plosive than any T sound. We can test the plosiveness of English D by placing a feather in front of our mouth and pronouncing the English word doll. Doll, doll. If you do this experiment, you'll observe that the feather does not move around with a burst of air from the D sound. So the degree of tension and plosiveness of the English D sound is similar to that of the Spanish T sound. Listen to these two syllables, this one pronounced with an English accent and this one pronounced with a Spanish accent. Da, 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 da. I hope you were able to hear that the amount of tension and explosiveness of these two sounds is about the same, even though the point of articulation is different. And it's interesting to do the whisper experiment. Because of the difference in point of articulation, the two aren't indistinguishable, but you can hear that they have a similar amount of tension and plosiveness. Something important to understand is that as I compare the tension of the English plosives and the Spanish stops, I'm not saying anything about Spanish B, D, and G. They're usually pronounced as approximants or fricatives and have nothing to do with this discussion. Alright, with that explanation, let's listen to some example words and phrases pronounced first with a typical English speaker accent, and then with more accurate Spanish pronunciation. Pay close attention to the differences in the P's, T's, and K's. El primer paso es el difícil. El primer paso es el difícil. Despacio al pensar, pero pronto al ejecutar. Despacio al pensar, pero pronto al ejecutar. Papa ya partida, papa ya comida. Papa ya partida, papa ya comida. Si tu vecino te alaba y felicita, algo necesita. Si tu vecino te alaba y felicita, algo necesita. Planta, siembra y cría, y tendrás alegría. Planta, siembra y cría, y tendrás alegría. Burro que gran hambre siente, a todo le mete el diente. Burro que gran hambre siente, a todo le mete el diente. Lo que mortifica, ni se recuerda ni se platica. Lo que mortifica, ni se recuerda ni se platica. En el coser y cantar, la cuestión es empezar. En el coser y cantar, la cuestión es empezar. Mal te quiere quien siempre te alaba y nunca te reprende. Mal te quiere quien siempre te alaba y nunca te reprende. Alright, so this is my suggestion for English speakers to develop a sense of how to pronounce Spanish P, T, and K. Try to pronounce them with the same degree of tension that you would use for English B, D, and G, and without any explosiveness or aspiration. Now, this isn't everything that could be said about Spanish P, T, and K. Different Spanish dialects pronounce them with different tension. The principles that I've described here apply to spontaneous, casual speech spoken under average conditions. Native speakers may pronounce P, T, and K with more explosiveness than I've indicated in this video when speaking slowly and carefully, and when reading aloud, and especially when speaking emphatically. But this is a good starting point for getting English speakers thinking about how to change the way they pronounce P, T, and K to make them sound more authentically Spanishy. Alright, if you've enjoyed this video or learned something from it, please give it a like and share it with a friend or two, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.